Good afternoon, Technical Director Dion and the team.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Just have a few more folks joining in, so welcome, everybody. Welcome. Pleasant afternoon, everybody. My name is Dion Lafoucade, and I'm the Technical Director for the Trinidad Football Association. I would like to welcome each and every one of you here today to this very special occasion with our very special guest. So before I introduce the guest, just let us start with a prayer. Dear God, we thank you for this opportunity again today to spread the word that there is hope. And thank you for the people who are on the call and those who would see the call later on. We thank you that we pray that anybody suffering with the pandemic, that they be healed, and Lord, you bring an end to this pandemic. We pray for all our athletes taking part in the Olympics at present. Please that they give them the strength and the courage to deal with what they have to deal with. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce you folks to Dr. Kamasha Robertson Martens, who has graciously agreed to join in with us today, all the way from Belgium. So it's good night for her. All right, it's after 8 o'clock at her time. But again, thank you very much, Dr. Martens, for being on board.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, everyone. As you said, it's nighttime for me, but it's a pleasure for me. It could be whatever hour, and I'd be happy to join you. So thank you. Yeah.
Dr. Kamasha, what I'd like to start off by doing is just asking you at first, how does our theme, there is hope, how does that resonate with you?
Well, there is hope is it resonates with me in a couple of aspects, in life and actually in sport, in both ways. For me, as an athlete, I played badminton for my country for several years, from a junior into an adulthood, and it's a very difficult sport. For those who may not know, it's an individual sport. It is the fastest racket sport in the world. A lot of people don't know that, and it can be very rigorous and demanding in a lot of ways. And so I've gone through a lot of trials with that, and training and pressures from just being an athlete and representing the country and going out there and not getting the results that people probably thought that we should have gotten as national athletes, but always having to remember that, yeah, I might have a bad game or something like that, but there's hope, because I can go back and work harder and remember the reason why I became an athlete in this sport and why I was doing it, because there's always some sort of opportunity that it provided me with. In some sort of way, I always learned something new. I always gained something from being an athlete. It wasn't just about the results of a particular match. And that's something that I had to look at, and I had to grow into and understand that those were the things that I was gaining as an athlete. And in life, for me, I had a lot of obstacles that I had to come across as well. I had a lot of personal tragedies. People who know me could tell you that during my studies and the pathway that it took for me to get here while I was doing my studies, I lost my mother to breast cancer during my studies. I lost a brother recently who was like a best friend to me. I lost my father. I've lost both my parents and a brother. And I mean, and I'm still standing now, but at points in time when that happened to me, I felt like I wanted to give up and there was nothing left for me. And I had to pick myself up, and I had to say to myself, well, what would my family want? What would my parents want for me? And I'm here today because there is hope. I had to look at God and say, well, why is all this happening to me? I thought, well, doesn't God love me anymore? And he had to show me that, you are stronger than you think you are. And because these trials, and as I say, these things can now become my testimony to you guys. For example, I can say this to you. No, it's not easy, but these are things that may help me to recognize that life still goes on and that I can still accomplish great things, even though I've had losses. And those were the things that helped to spur me on, actually, to accomplish these things and to be where I am today.
Okay, thank you. You want to talk us through a little bit about your journey? What was that journey like? Maybe from primary school, what was the journey like? Because sometimes we see athletes like yourself who have accomplished a lot, and we think it's just something that it's a click of a thumb. How does that happen? Can you just talk us through that journey, please?
Yeah, how much time do you have? I'm just kidding. No, it's nice to hear that, because as I say, as a badminton athlete, I know that we're not the most popular sport, or like I've seen some of your athletes that you've had on, and I know that nobody probably knows about us. So it's any opportunity we get to talk about it, it's really nice to know that people want to hear that story. So for me, I grew up, I was one of 5 children, and one of 2 girls. So my sister, she was not in sport at all. And I had 3 brothers who loved sports and were very active. So I was kind of like a tomboy, the typical tomboy kind of role. So I grew up playing a lot of football, actually, basketball, whatever sport, cricket, the usual. Just, I came from 2 parents who were into sports. My father was very athletic, actually, and he did a lot of cricket, and he always talked about he did a lot of running for Hampton Games and all those things back in the day, and football and everything. So I came from that background where I was always into sports. And I just loved playing sports, and any opportunity that I could get, I was playing sports. So fast forward to getting into school and stuff. I actually, one of the most formal training of sports that I had, I would say, was netball. And I was actually pretty good at netball. And netball, actually, I got to the point where, I'll just fast track that. I got to the point where I was actually called for national training with netball. And I ended up turning that down because it was a point where I had to choose between netball and badminton. But I played a lot of netball, even into university. I still love it. I was a center most of the time, but I could play any position like wing attacks or things like that. And then actually I did a formal tennis. Tennis was my first love, actually. When people hear my story, like I started playing tennis and I was into tennis and I was sure that I was going to be a great tennis player. And then what happened was, I was playing tennis, and at the time when I was growing up, there weren't that many tennis clubs and things like that. But I was really determined that I wanted to play tennis. I used to annoy my family by hitting tennis balls and practicing home on the wall, because I was just so determined to play tennis. But I went into secondary school, and I had physical education class. And funny thing happened. I was introduced to the sport of badminton. And I thought to myself, badminton, man, this sport, this can't be as good as tennis, because it's just this, like, what is badminton? A lot of people didn't really know about it. And I started playing badminton, and I guess I have to say this is where my physical education teacher, I always say I owe everything to her. She just saw something in me that she thought that I had a natural ability and an inclination to play badminton. And she urged me and gave me a connection to a badminton club. And she suggested that I go join the club because she thought that I had some talent there. And me being sport hungry, I thought, okay, I'll just go join the club because I like sports. And again, I credit my parents. They were like very good into encouraging me to do whatever. And they encouraged me, and I went to the club and I started playing badminton, but still was playing tennis. And my first coach that I had, she was a well-known badminton player. She was one of the best in the country and in the Caribbean. And she at one point said to me, listen, you can't do both of them, because you're mixing. I used to play tennis strokes for some strokes in badminton, and I was mixing up the techniques. And so she said, you need to make a decision. You need to make a decision. And then for some reason, I ended up choosing badminton. And I think it was more too, as I mentioned before, that I didn't really have many options for tennis at the time. And I just kind of fell in love with playing the badminton. For some reason, I felt I kind of liked it more, and I was getting the gist of it more. And I just said, okay, I'm going to stick with badminton. And the rest is kind of history. I felt like it was the best decision that I made in my life. I had no idea that making that decision would kind of chart the course of my life. So I went into badminton from there. And from that, I was hooked. And I played badminton consistently and until I trained and trained until I got called for national training. And actually, the first time I got called for national training, I remember with all the experienced players, actually got called for training, but I didn't end up making the squad when I was an early teenager, really young. And I thought, and that's where the There's Hope coming. And I felt, oh man, I'm never going to make the team. I got called for training, but then I got dropped from the team. And then I remember one of the coaches spoke to me and said, Robertson, he's still a coach now. He's like, Robertson, no, he told my father, you have potential and you have talent and whatever, keep training, but you're not there yet. And, a little more, she needs to train a little bit more. And because I was really young then compared to everybody else. And that's what I did. And then from then on, I was just always on the team. I made the team the next year, and my first international tournament, actually, I won a bronze in women's doubles and a team medal, a silver in the team, and that was it. Just started playing from then on, and because I was a badminton athlete, a national player, that then got me a national sports scholarship that was able to get me my first degree, my bachelor's degree. And that's very interesting as well, because I never thought that I would have been a person who would have studied sport even. I know I love sport, but I never put two together that I wanted an educational background in sport. Like I just knew that I wanted to be a psychologist or something like that, but I never knew that I could study sport. And then as a matter of fact, I remember when I first got my scholarship, and I was going to Cuba, some people laughed at me, or some people said, what are you going to study? And I said, well, I'm going to study sport. And they said, well, you're going to switch to medicine, right? Because I had actually as well too, I wanted to be a doctor at one point, and I thought, I could do all those things. And I said, no, I'm going to study sport. And people back then didn't understand sport. Well, what can you do with sport? you know and it was really difficult for people to understand what I would do with a sporting degree, because it was not something like it is today, where people understand that there are avenues for sport. And so there again, I saw that sport was giving me an avenue. And if I'm going too fast, should I stop, or or is it
No,
okay?
you're going perfect, because what I want you to touch on, you're going perfect, because obviously we have a lot of people on the call, and some actually from the United States of America and Canada, along with folks
Yeah.
from the Caribbean. How were you able to balance schoolwork, and from what you're talking about, sport was very heavy in your life.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
was that self-discipline, or your parents were on you the whole time? How were
No,
you able to balance discipline,
now that I look
sport
back,
and schoolwork?
Actually, I don't know if it's just me. I'm actually pretty well behaved, disciplined child, first of all, I have to say. And I think I owe a lot as well to my parents, because come to think of it, now that you say so, when I said my first international tournament that I played in, I think it was hosted in Trinidad. And I remember distinctly now that my parents came and they brought my CXC slip to me. So, which meant I was playing, and my father was so proud because I actually did pretty well. I had a few ones in there and stuff, and my father was proud to bring, which meant I remember now I was playing badminton and training and preparing for a big tournament throughout CXC. So for me, it was my parents never stopped me, and every time I look back, even today, I say to people, man, when I see my people stopping their children because of it, I said I was grateful for that. I was never discouraged or dissuaded by my parents. And that really helped, because I just remember, when you think about it, why do you need to stop? You go to school, you make time to study, you get, like, you're going to training for like 2 hours or 3 hours of the day anyway. You're not going to be studying in that time frame. You're going to study anyway when you get back from training. And it was just a balance that we just knew how to do. And I would make sacrifices. I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to train and do my own personal exercise, run around back then when it was safe, go running, do all those things. All of those things that I had to do to push myself in the sport. And my parents, I think they saw that. They knew me as an athlete, as a student. I think that's what happened as well. I always had good grades. It was never a difficult student. My parents knew that I was a top-notch student. And actually, I was involved in so many other things, to be honest with you, Mr. Lafgard. I was doing pageantry. I was doing, I was also, my father, I used to do all sorts of like poetry and enter calypso competitions. I was like the all-around kind of person, to be honest. And I think that my parents always saw that in me. Like my family always said that about me, that I was like that one child. And this is not to sound boastful. It was just me. I was just involved in everything because even when I was doing, as I say, exams, I won the first Miss Teen Trinidad and Tobago pageant. I was still playing badminton. I was still doing schoolwork. So I think that was what it was. I was just always just kind of disciplined, and my parents saw that, and they also understood that it was important for me to be motivated by something. And they knew that if they took that away from me, they saw I was going places with it. In other words, that it would have affected me in a negative way, I think, to be
And
honest.
just as a coach Lydia Bramble on the call, she just put in the chat. She said more parents should be hearing what you're saying, because the tendencies for parents is, look, we want our kids to go to the well, quote unquote, the better schools. And
Yeah.
what will you say to coaches who see the athlete more as an athlete and not as a student athlete, especially in, like, all different sports? They more focus on the potential, the talent. And what advice would you give to coaches in terms of helping the child to be more academic?
Yeah, they need to see that there's balance in everything, because a coach should know very well, God forbid if something happens to that athlete and they get injured, then what do they fall back on? They know, they ought to know that that's going to be, that guilt and blood is going to be on their hands. And there's no problem in balancing it, because they should understand that actually both help the other. Research that I've done shows that actually children need, and people need, a particular amount of hours of physical activity and exercise, because that's what I'm saying. If you take that away from the child and you just put them to sit in front of a computer or a book, it actually doesn't help them. But when you exercise physically, it stimulates the body. It actually helps with blood circulation. That helps you to study better, helps the brain, and vice versa. When you study and you read and you do things, it helps improve concentration because you're doing something like that, which then in turn helps you with your sport. And so that it's all a symbiotic relationship that coaches need to understand as well, that they need to have the athlete balance out by being responsible, by doing schoolwork, and so that they also understand that they have something to fall back on, so that they don't feel fearful and that they don't feel pressured then in the sport, because then they understand, hey, if I don't make it in this sport, then I have nothing else. So that goes both ways. And yeah, so the coaches have to understand that as well, because then that's what they end up doing to the athlete. They put a lot of pressure on them, and that becomes a problem that is long term, that doesn't end up pretty most of the time.
And I say this with all humility. I remember when I ran the football school that I had, I remember, interacting with some teachers, and they said, Dion, your students are very well in the classroom. And I was like, wow, because, I emphasize a lot on discipline. And what you say, what part does confidence have to play with doing well in school and on the field of play?
Oh yeah, well, when confidence all around, as you said, if you're confident in your schoolwork, yeah, you feel accomplished, because that's a mental aspect that you've worked hard for, and that you have worked hard to study, and that you feel proud and you're confident of your work. So then that transfers onto the field, that you know that you have the ability to work hard at something, and so that you're confident that you can transfer those skills on the field to work hard, and that you're confident that you could work hard to build the discipline, to get fit, to do what you need to do. And that confidence, it shines through as an athlete. And you then see that coming through on the court, that you're confident enough to perform and do what you need to do, because you know you have that discipline. You're confident that you can execute. It really does transfer, because you just, as I say, you're aware of the capabilities that you have as a student, and that you know that you can transfer that confidence as an athlete, because of the fact that you have the discipline to work hard. And that's where that confidence comes from. Every time I would get most confident, when I would get most confident as an athlete, when my physical fitness, which was one of my major downfalls, would be the best. That's when I would be most confident. When I go out, when I know that I'm working hard, because I knew I had the technical ability, I knew I had the intelligence as an athlete. But whenever I was not at my best in my physical fitness, that's when I used to go on the court and worry the most, because especially when I had to play singles, because I knew I wasn't putting in the work and I wasn't confident enough. I knew I wasn't being disciplined enough, and there were times when I wasn't putting in the work to get out there and perform. So it would always affect my confidence.
Dr. Kamasha, this is so fantastic because a lot of parents need to hear what you're saying because there are still some people, and I saw Coach Ikena put in the chat, some parents are still of the belief that no, you can't mix the both because anytime the child is doing sport, and one of the things problems I saw, and you can talk to this in terms of your research. For example, I was at St. Mary's College doing football there, and when I got the boys in Form 1, I did it one time, the Form 1s. A lot of them had not played for 2 or 3 years any sport because all their 6 days a week was taken up prior to doing lessons, to doing remedial work, which is important.
Yeah.
But the kids will, when you look at when I compared some of the footballers to the other schools, they never really stopped. But the kids at St. Mary's College, and I'm not sure if it's the same at Fatima or the other top schools. And let me say also, in my opinion, all the schools are very good. So it's not a question of this school is better than the other one.
Yeah.
But in terms of the kids, never really did much sport, and parents think that was the right way to go.
No, it's. I mean, maybe I'm sounding like I'm coming from a bias point, and I'll be honest with you, I never did lessons. I never did lessons. My parents, it's another funny thing. I don't know why, but I never got into the lesson things. But the way I see it, as I say, you spend so many hours, you have to think about it like this. When you're sedentary and you spend so many hours sitting, you're sitting all day in class, and then as I say, what's 2 hours? 2 hours that they spend training, then they're going to still get the time to study anyway. You have to just look at it as the 2 hours is not stopping them from studying. That's the way I see it. If they spend 2 to 3 hours training, they can still go back and be fresh now, and that actually invigorates them to study. It actually gives you life, because the adrenaline that you get from training, actually, yes, people think you're going to be tired even, but you get adrenaline from training, and then you get that flow, as I say, everything that flow, that feeling of accomplishment. You get happy. I can't tell you, as hard and difficult as national training used to be, there's still a happiness that you used to get from going to it, and completing it, because like I said, it takes a lot of discipline, and it feels like it's an accomplishment to complete the tasks. And so then you know that, hey, and you know the fact that the parents are letting you do this, that, hey, I have to show them that I can excel in that schoolwork. So it's also motivation, as we talk about in sports psychology. So then now you have that motivation, and that intrinsic motivation coming from within to now move on to say, I'm going to show my parents that I can accomplish this because I'm doing both of them. And as I say, they need each other. You can't be sedentary and expect to be healthy. It just doesn't work that way. We even know, we've seen that in lockdowns. We've seen as adults how it's affecting people, and people are just realizing how much a lockdown affects us, and that we need to get out there. And even the studies again, and the researchers, just doing half an hour even of just walking, basic walking is necessary for the body. Just that, we see how it affects us as human beings. So imagine a child who has a physiological system that is hyper, and they need to get out and move. How is that going to affect them if they have to sit in a classroom all day, then get up and go to lessons and sit in the classroom for more hours? It's really not the best situation for a child's body, to be honest, or a child's mind. And I really wish a lot of parents would understand that sacrificing 2 hours of maybe 3 days of the week is really not going to cause damage, but it's going to add to the holistic development of your child.
You talked about the concentration in the classroom. You talked about some of your highs. Give us an idea, because you obviously went through quite a bit of lows. How did you deal with these lows? If you could describe one or two, what was your coping mechanism to deal with some of these lows?
Yeah, I was going to touch on that later on, but yeah, coping mechanisms I think for me in particular, I'll tell you, and this is I think what makes me resilient. For me, I'm a person that doesn't like to give up, because I feel like I always say that I think that my parents did so much for me, just in my journey through badminton. Like I mentioned before, badminton is not the most popular sport, and the amount of things that my parents sacrificed for me, like just having to sacrifice financially for me to the equipment for badminton was expensive. As I said, I was one out of 5 children, and my parents just sacrificed that for me. and also just to get money to travel abroad for tournaments. We're not like the footballers. You guys get, you guys don't have to go searching for your sponsors. We had to get sponsors on our own. It was a lot. It was a lot, facility wise. My father would have to, I remember the days when my father, I'm from Chaguanas, Londonville to be exact. My father would have to drive me to Sangre Grande, sometimes just for training, national training, because we couldn't get facilities in the area. Like when I reflect on all those things, for me, that's what really pushed me. When I thought about giving up, I said, no, I can't give up because they've done all of this for me. I have to succeed. So that was my coping mechanism. Every time I felt like, I'm so sad, what's the point of continuing in life? I had to like pull myself together and I said to myself, no, I need to push because there is a purpose in my life. I'm still here. God has purpose for me. I'm still here. I have to help others. And I strongly believe that, like, as I said, like my story someday, which as I say, is a gift for me now. I can't believe I'm telling this story. Like, I never thought I would, that it's going to inspire someone. I'm here today as a doctor. I never could believe that probably would happen to a person like me because I persevered. And that was one of my coping mechanisms. Also, one of my coping mechanisms would be I would always take negatives, and it's something I would talk about later, cognitive reframing, and look at negatives and flip them into positives and say, okay, this has happened, but how do I move on? I'll look at this in a positive way. Look at the positives that you can get out of this. Things could be worse. Yeah, this has happened, but things could be worse, but you have this. And that's one of this couple of ways that I would have dealt with it. And I found worked for me.
This is so powerful. I mean, where were you when I was going to school? Where were you? No, because this is what I know for myself. I've been honest. This is what I needed to have that type of person around me, that type of person. But before we go on with some of the questions, what I want to do is, I'll ask the people in the audience, Dr. Kamasha is going to show a video and want you guys to ask some questions about the video. And so want you guys to be more interactive. So she's going to share a video with us.
Okay, yes, I am. So where is my share screen? Okay,
You know about his incredible efficiency. You know about his record. You know about his rivalry with Lionel Messi. But do you know how much Cristiano Ronaldo's father has influenced his story? The Portuguese striker's dad, José Diniz Aveiro, has been a massive influence in the superstar's fate. For starters, he gave him the name Ronaldo because he loved the American actor and politician Ronald Reagan. CR7's childhood was hard in Madeira. Cristiano grew up in a very poor neighborhood in extreme misery, and his relationship with his dad was very complicated. Coming back from the war in Africa, José Diniz Aveiro became a distressed, violent man. An alcoholic, he was almost always drunk whenever he was home. Cristiano Ronaldo was traumatized and vowed to never drink a single drop of liquor. He's still holding on to his promise, even when his teammates are out celebrating their wins and titles. But his father's influence wasn't all bad. Although he himself was completely lost, José Diniz believed in his son, even when nobody dared yet bet on the Portuguese genius. "My son will be the best player in the world," he'd say. We would always laugh and roll our eyes. We would call him a fool, but he always believed. When Cristiano Ronaldo was transferred to Manchester United in 2003, at barely 18, his father would tell him, "You'll become the best scorer in the world." "The best player, maybe, but not the best scorer," CR7 would reply. "Wanna bet?" his dad would dare him. This blind trust gave Cristiano Ronaldo wings. It pushed him to train like crazy to become the best. His dad passed away in 2005 due to a liver tumor caused by alcohol when CR7 was only 21 years old. It was on the day of the Portugal-Russia game, one of the elimination games of the 2006 World Cup. His then coach, Luis Felipe Scolari, broke the terrible news to CR7 only a few hours before the game. Devastated by grief, he still showed up on the field. He gave his best, so much so that he was voted man of the game. He wanted to face this difficult trial to honor his father's memory. The father he was estranged from, but who taught him the value of effort and hard work. Today, Cristiano Ronaldo is one of the best scorers in the world, just as Jose Diniz Aveiro had predicted. 15 years later, we can say that Cristiano rose to the challenge and that his father has won the bet.
Right. So,
Wow, that's very, very powerful.
yeah, I think it is indeed, which is why I wanted to talk about it. What I think that video conveys and shows us, and when you talk about there is hope, is to talk about something we talk about in sports psychology called resilience. And what that means is being able to rise above challenges, and when things are bad, being able to overcome it. And what I like about that is that you just asked me as well what caused me, what I used as a coping mechanism. And we saw here that Cristiano Ronaldo had the same day that he had a huge match in a World Cup tournament, he got news that his father had passed away. And yet still he decided to turn up for the match. And not only did he compete, but he was able to capture the man of the game, man of the match title. And what that tells us is that of his personality is that he has a very resilient character. And that doesn't happen easily or for everyone. You have to know how to build that. And one of the things that he probably used is the fact that his father always told him that he was going to be the best, and his father told him that he'd be the best scorer. And so he used that to make it a positive thing, to help fuel him to play. And that's one of the ways that I want us to see in our lives, that we can take negatives and turn them into positives, because we have a source, that it comes from a source. That when we want to always have people, we know we have people who give us that energy or that positivity, who believe in us, who've helped us along the way. And another thing, if you follow football and you know about Ronaldo, is that he's extremely disciplined. He's one of the most disciplined athletes you will find out there. And you notice as well that he used that negativity of his father who was an alcoholic. And instead of him becoming an alcoholic himself, he decided no. He saw the negative ramifications of that, and he decided, no, I'm not going to be that person. I know what it can do negatively, so I'm going to stay as far away from that as possible. And using that propels him as well to become a better person and a better athlete. We just saw it in the Euros that just finished the other day, where it was a big thing, where he removed the like even just the Coca-Cola from from the thing, which was a big sponsor, and that caused a whole thing, because he was like, no Coca-Cola, no agua, yes, because he's very big on his training. Even for his age, I think he's about 36 now or something like that. I can't remember. And even when it comes, one of the things that he does, and I want you guys as athletes to remember this, a lot of athletes always focus on training. But in the scientific world, we have shown that recuperation is just as important, even more important than training. You have to remember that allowing your body the rest and the proper recuperation and things that you need to do is extremely important. And so he understands that, and the balance that it takes to help make him the complete athlete. And that's what I want to talk about, just being resilient and taking negatives and reframing, flipping them around to use it to propel you to become a better person. And that's what I wanted to share from that video.
Well, you talked about intrinsic versus extrinsic. What do you think you need to have the both, or which one you should have more in terms of motivation?
I would say it's always best to be intrinsically motivated, because it can be, I'm really glad that you asked that question, actually, because having it come from inside of you is always helpful, because then you find real purpose. and drive to really push you as an athlete. And I say I'm glad you asked that question because just today I was looking at, there's an athlete in the Olympics from from Great Britain, and she's a taekwondo athlete, I think. She has just won her first Olympics was in 2012, where she won a gold. She also won a back-to-back gold in 2016. So she was going into this Olympics with, of course, the anticipation that she could repeat that and be the first in history for her sport and as a woman and everything. And she went in there and she, they were interviewing her after in tears because she failed to even move from the first round. And I'm always curious as a sports psychology person as well, because with this whole corona thing and the build up before, and the fact that a lot of you know that because of the situation, you can't have a crowd there. And she was in tears saying, yeah, I'm so used to having my parents in the crowd, and the fact that there's no crowd and nobody there to push me on. And that really affected me. And it's so much pressure I put on myself, and I didn't have that, and I didn't have that. And it's really hard not having the people there to push you. And all those things she was saying, I was just saying to myself, there you have it. It shows you the importance when people need to be extrinsically motivated. That's what can happen to you. That is one of the things that can happen. No, not saying that it's a bad thing, because me as an athlete, I'm one of those athletes that I like when I go out, and especially playing an individual sport, I like when I go on the court and I hear my teammates, come on, Kamasha, and the loud noise. And there are people I know that don't like that. But me, I like that, because that's the kind of athlete that I am. I like that. But I know as well that I'm also the kind of athlete that when I go on court, I'm like loud. I'm like, yeah, come on, because that's what pushes me. I have it inside of me. I have to have that. And that just shows you that intrinsic motivation is very, very necessary as an athlete. If you don't talk to yourself, if you don't get yourself, and again, things I was going to mention later on, positive self-talk, and push yourself from within, know the reason why you're stepping on your court, your field, in the pool, wherever you're going to do what you're going to do, then you're going to lose your way at some point if your only motivation comes from some external factor. Sometimes if it's from money, if it's from because you want to show off to your to your peers or something. It's always safer, I would say, to be intrinsically motivated, because that's the best you that you will get, most likely.
Yeah. So you're talking about being intrinsic motivation, and at times extrinsic motivation can help. What about the power of words? Because sometimes we say things to ourselves, and this as a question of looking at the glass half full or half empty. How could we use words in a better way when things are around us? We're not getting the external motivation.
That's extremely important, because you're very right with that, and that's why we teach our athletes to delve into positive self-talk. It's so important that we encourage, and again, all stuff I was going to mention, but I'm glad you're mentioning about taking journals and writing positive things down, because you feed yourself those things and it can really harm you. I've seen it happen to athletes. If you go on court and you say, oh, you're so stupid, after you make a mistake, and the science shows that you affect yourself negatively, because you can't move on, because you're already telling yourself that you're stupid and you made a mistake, and that's going to affect you throughout the rest of your time that you have on the court or whatever. But when you tell yourself positive things and you feed yourself positive things, yeah, I can do it. And that's why we call them just like little phrases of positivity. I always tell my athletes, develop your little cues. Like, so have something that you develop that you like to say, that it could be anything that you like. Yeah, you can do it. Or a next one, or whatever it is that you want to do, that helps you to be positive. That really helps you to look at things in a better light. I'll give you an example again, if I may, from my sport. Like my sport, we play to 21 points. And something that helps me not to concentrate on, like, if somebody's leading me by a few points and I have to catch up or something, and I could say, oh my gosh, I'm never going to catch up with 6 points ahead of me or something. I have this saying where people probably think I'm crazy, where if I score a point and it's my turn to serve, I say one more, just one more. I say one more point. And people sometimes, when I'm playing doubles with my partner, they don't understand. No, they're like, we have some, no, one more point. because that gives me motivation, and I concentrate on just one more, and that works sometimes, a lot of times, and then I catch up to them because I'm not looking at it like I have a whole 6 more points or whatever. No, I think positively, one at a time, every time, one more, just one more, Kamasha, one more. And that's how I go, one more. And that brings a positive outlook for me because I see it as not a big obstacle to overcome, but as just a small thing. And it gives me more energy. And I look at it as in a positive way that I can do it. Come on, one more. And it pushes me to do it because I don't see it as I say, something that's impossible to achieve, in other words. So you have to know what works for you and think positively. It really does help. I'll give you a quick tool in psychology that is scientifically known to work as well, that I use as well. And so if you're having a bad game or time during your match or whatever, do you know that by just faking a smile, it induces hormones and stuff in your body that actually changes your state of mind? So you make an error and you might want to be upset, but actually just putting a smile is scientifically known to change your mood. So that's something I do. I make an error and you might think of it and I just smile like, what are you doing? And you laugh. And actually, by putting that positive spin on it, it actually helps to change your mood. And then you settle yourself and you get ready for your next move or whatever you have to do. So all those things are positive things that you can try.
I remember one time a parent was talking about, she said her daughter suffered from very, very low self-esteem. And I think what she did was she found some posters of people that her daughter looked up to. And she printed positive quotes on it and put it in her room.
Yeah.
And she said that's something, like it played up something on her, not only conscious mind, but subconscious mind. In your expertise, Doc, you want to talk a little bit about that? How does that work?
Oh yeah, those are techniques. Those are great techniques. I actually tell athletes sometimes to do that, to stick things, or do, if you find that your child has low self-esteem as well, the mirror technique is also quite good, where you put them to stand in front of a mirror and as a daily exercise a few times, and to repeat again positive cues or words or phrases. I am enough. I am strong. I believe in myself. And it's not just saying it, I am strong, but it's the manner in which you say it. You have to really believe and make yourself believe in it. Those things work as well. What she did is a good thing by sticking stuff up and putting cues, put them around where you can see, put them on the ceiling. So when you lie in your bed, you look up, you can see it. And that's why I always encourage athletes again to have the little books, the little journals, to just write things down and to write your emotions and to talk about it and to put what you feel and to write strong things. So when you think you're having negative thoughts, I tell them as well, write it down, put it in the book, and then look at it and say, I don't want that anymore. You rip it up and you throw it away. Get rid of it. That's also an exercise we do, because you want to get it out of your mind, out of your thoughts for the time being, and you move away from it. Or you write the positive things down. So when you feel low, you open the book and you say, no, I am this. I'm strong. I am enough. And so you have a reminder of what you need to be, who you need to be. And these little things, and this is something I want people to understand. Just like you want to go to the gym and you want to lift the weights and you want to practice things and you want to build your muscle, your brain is like a muscle. You have to practice them. You have to take the time out of the day to practice it. You can't just wake up one day and expect I'm going to be strong mentally without just putting the time. I always try to tell athletes, I'm like, oh, did you practice your exercises? No, I didn't have the time. All it takes is a minute a day, and you build and you build, and you start off building and you do it, and you realize that you will become, just like when I talk about concentration later on, I'll talk about that. Just taking a little time, and your brain is like a muscle. You have to exercise it if you want to get strong enough as well. So these things have to be practiced, and it doesn't take much time. And you'll realize it will become fun for you, because it will become automatic almost for you to feel that way and to want to put the work into it to become a better person.
I'm not just saying this is so nice. This is so inspiring. It's not funny.
I appreciate that.
This is so inspiring. What I want everybody on the call to do, everybody, adult, coaches, players, what I want you guys to do is to come up with 3 things that you would say to yourself. So I'll say to myself, I have greatness inside of me. I want you guys to put it in the chat, 3 different things, and let's start practicing that technique right now. I want you guys to do that. Put 3 different things that you're going to say to yourself. Put that in the chat. And while they're putting that in the chat, who's going to be first? Who's going to be first today?
I like that idea.
Yeah, who's going to be first today? I am worth it. Oh, this is brilliant, Israel. This is brilliant. Can you put 3? I want each person to put 3 things. It can be however you want to motivate yourself. I am strong. No one is worthless. Wow.
I love
Come
that.
on, keep
No one is
putting it in the chat, guys. Keep it in the chat, because I'm gonna learn some quotes here myself. I believe in myself. I'm enough. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's awesome. I'm an amazing person.
I actually have something at my desk. All things are possible through Christ. I just have things as well right in front of my desk that I look at.
Because I'll be honest, Doc. I never thought that the brain needs to be exercised, you know, in this way, because as you're saying, it releases endorphins, and then when we think negatively, not that I want to harp on the negative, but when we think negatively, what effect does that have on the body? And if you could share also, when we think positively, what effect it has on the body?
Negative thinking does have an effect on the body because it can influence what you do. And I'll give you an example of when athletes, for example, I've seen athletes when they suffer from injuries. And that's a good example. So you have athletes that get bad injuries,
Wow.
and then they need to get back out there and they need to perform. And the negative thinking hampers them it inhibits them from performing, because you know what they're thinking? Oh, they always tell you, I'm afraid that the move that I did the last time, I can hear that crack from when I broke so and so. So I don't want to do it because I'm afraid that I'm going to do that, you know, and that's what's going to happen to me. So I think negatively. I think that it's good. So it induces fear, which I don't know how many of you all know the amygdala in the brain is a part of the brain that is responsible for primarily fear, which is a lot of research has gone into that. And your flight or flight system, which is why when you do sports, you have choking in life in general, when you associate. So like I said, if you have an injury and you did something and you remember doing a particular move and you hear that sound, you associate that with, oh my gosh, I'm going to hurt myself again. And so we have to work so hard to get them to change that into a positive thinking, that no, you have to be positive, that you can overcome that and you're going to be stronger. You've been working at it physically, so you have to tell yourself now mentally. So they're doing all the work, they're doing all the rehab, but they still have a fear that when they do go on and they go do whatever they're going to do again, they're going to break their leg or do whatever injury, pull that muscle, because that's how much the negative thought is hampering them and inhibiting them from performing. And let me ask you a question as you're on that, and I want to show you something of why you mentioned that you didn't know that practicing in the brain. A lot of people always, when I ask them, if I asked you how much of an athlete's work do you think is natural ability in percentage, if you just give me, how much would you say? Like, would you say? We just throw in some figures.
And I want the guys in the chat also to
if anybody,
yeah, you guys come out, please come out and say. Just ask the question again, please.
If you wanted to say how much of a natural ability would you say as an athlete is that, like 5-10%, whatever, 50, how much would you say is attributed? Somebody I see says 25, 20, right? Okay. How much would you say is technical ability? Somebody says 90 even. Okay, good. 35. So how much would you say then is, so we have tactical. How much would you say is attributed to tactical? 75. Good. How much would you say then is for the mental aspect of being an athlete? That would leave not much then, probably. If we just kind of throwing it out there. Somebody says 10, 60, 75. So normally, right? So it's good that we get these kind of answers, 70%. So I'll tell you, for natural abilities, usually about 5%. We're just throwing it out. Technical, it's about 10% or so. And do you know what the largest is? When I tell people, they never understand. 80 to 90% of what you do is mental, is psychological. And a lot of people don't understand that. That's what separates all those. Right now, Olympics is going on. What separates you, all the elite athletes, from each other sometimes is that mental ability, that psychological edge, because they're all training at high levels most of the time. They all have the upper hand, but sometimes it comes down years of training and it comes down to half a second, a nanosecond, whatever it is. because somebody just has the upper, just that edge, that level of confidence, and just something that it's that mental edge to just push a little further, go a little, and they'll tell you that sometimes. It's like we call it in Trinidad bad mind. We like to say bad mind, right? You'll
Yes.
hear some people say we have bad mind, and you know, and that's what it is sometimes, and that's how important the mental toughness and mental training is to an athlete. And I want people to understand that yes, physical is important, but if you don't work your brain, and I can tell you, you know, one of the reasons why I got into sports psychology, sport and exercise psychology, when I started playing abroad, it's funny, when I started holding my shuttle in my hand, this is literally what my hand would do. And these are all things I was going to go into. And there are a whole bunch of different types of anxiety. My hands would shake so badly. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have people like what I'm doing now to talk to me. I had to develop techniques to try and later on to stop my hands from shaking, because that's how nervous I was. That's what anxiety was doing to my body. I didn't know how to cope with it. I didn't know what to do, because I had all these people looking at me out there when I was going abroad. When I was in Trinidad, I was fine. They used to make a joke and call me the training champion. And it's still to a point I had that problem. I would be great in training, but from the time I hit a tournament, I had real issues because mentally I couldn't get it together, because I would always be, and especially when I played singles. That's why singles is not my favorite event, but doubles and mixed doubles, I'm more of a doubles specialist, because I realized that I had less pressure when I was playing doubles than being on the court alone. I just can't do it. I can't play on the court alone with everybody staring at me and watching what I'm doing. Sorry to say, maybe I choose the wrong sport. That's why when I play netball, I feel so much joy, and I can play effortlessly when I play netball. I don't care who's looking. I like playing with a team. I like playing team sports. I always say I don't know why I chose badminton because I'm good at it, but I don't know why, because I love playing team sports, because I just don't think about who's looking at me when I play team sports. But these are things I had to learn about myself and understand when I got older, when I was getting into the science of it, you know. So I see somebody say badminton chose me. It kind of did, to be honest with you. It kind of did. Sometimes I would be on the court playing, and it was so hard. I told somebody this the other day. I'd be playing a match, and I would be close to dying because it's so hard, and I'm rallying. And I think to myself, why am I doing this to my body? but but it's really rewarding. I have to tell you, I've gotten so much out of it. As I say, the travel, the opportunity, seeing the world, just where I am. And I didn't finish my story, but it's really rewarding. But yeah.
How do you deal with having to face somebody who is world ranked? They know they're ranked very highly and very popular in the sport. And how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that, facing that type of opponent?
That's the worst thing. You just hit the nail on the head. It's not even that sometimes. This might sound bad, but just even seeing somebody who's Asian from a next country, because for us in our sport, Asians are like the best. So that was even worse. Or from a particular country, you're right. So once we stepped out there and we just saw the draw, and we just knew somebody from a particular country, from the USA or from wherever, Brazil, we were like, snap, this is what we got on the draw. That is also another thing that we had to deal with, because we would just see the draw, and before, the night before, I couldn't sleep. So those things used to affect me like that. But how you deal with it is it's just really difficult. You have to find ways to calm yourself, and to and this is where I was going to go into. We're going to do a deep breathing exercise later on, and that's one of the things that I do imagery that I could touch on. So practicing, I don't know if any of you know what imagery is. And so imagery is a technique, and it's one of the things actually that, when I just mentioned athletes who have injuries, it's something that we use to help them as well, as a form of practice. Since they can't physically sometimes practice, we use it to where they recollect images of them doing and performing in a state where they're excelling and not being fearful. So it really helps them to see themselves in a light of doing it. And each sport and athlete, as I say, each person has a different, it's really technical, but not everybody can do imagery. Some people don't have the ability. I find it strange because I can, but it's very weird. Some people don't, they can't use visual imagery, whatever. There are different types. Me in particular, I really like it. In my sport in particular, different sports also, they use internal, some use external. For example, we use a third person perspective, whereas like you're watching TV and I can see myself on the court. somebody who's doing running perhaps or swimming might use the internal perspective where they're inside their body and they see themselves they're performing. So it depends again on the sport, and stuff science shows that it's all different. But for me as a badminton player, that's how I see it. So I love that. Like before I even knew what imagery was, when I was much younger, I found that that's something that I would do before, especially if I know the opponent and I know what they could do. I would run through in my mind a match and show myself overcoming them, playing shots and tactically. So that's how I would overcome it. I would say, I can do this and I can play this way and I can do that. And I would walk into the match trying to make myself feel like, okay, I have the confidence to just play. Because in our kinds of sport, you have to try to play without thinking about the score and things like that. You just have to try to play. If you got to think about, oh, what's the score going to be? And that's a problem as well. People tend to think too much about what the score is, and that's not a reflection always of your performance. You can't, I always tell my athletes, you don't think about the end result. You have to think of the process goals. And that's something that a lot of athletes get caught up in, because they think about, oh, what's the score? And I see myself winning at the end. No, you think about the process. Go through the process of what you're doing step by step, and you'll get there. Eventually, maybe you'll win, maybe you won't. But at the end of the day, some of my best matches that I've played, I might have lost. I'll tell you that. I have matches where I came off the court after an hour and a half or something, and I'm like, that was a really good match because of how I played in the rallies and the way I fought. And it was an enjoyable match because I knew I gave everything, and it was just really intense. So not everything is about winning at the end. Yes, I would have liked to win, but I have several matches where I just was really enjoyable because of the way I played tactically, the way I played physically. And that's how I measure performance. I measure my performance by that. And that's very important as well.
As you talked about, not thinking, well, I'm 5 points behind or 10 points behind, just take it 1 point at a time.
Yeah.
I heard somebody once say, Doc, a mistake is an event and not a person. And that really stuck out to me because, they were saying that if you made a mistake and then you went down, let's say, in Trinidad, you went down to Frederick Street and you put a hat on the ground and you kept telling everybody about the mistake you made and people putting money in the hat, that mistake became a person. But a mistake is an event that lasts a second or two, and not to dwell too much on the mistake. Remember what the mistake was, but don't dwell so much. How did you deal with mistakes? That's something I've done this many times, but I've made this mistake in a particular sport.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it's so quick again with badminton. It's such a quick sport. We don't have time to stop. If you stop to dwell on the mistake that you've made in the last point, which sometimes you can't do, you tend to do, you miss an easy sitter, you smash in the net and you want to be mad about it for the next 3 points, your concentration is on that. And you're not concentrating on building yourself for the next few points. And we tend to do that sometimes, I'm not going to lie. But what you have to do, how I deal with it, is, again, self-talk. I do a lot of self-talk. Y'all, I'm not crazy. Y'all might think I'm crazy. I like to talk to myself. I will not lie to you. I find that I've always been like that since a child, and it works for me. And I have to, again, especially in an individual sport. I don't know if there's anybody on the panel here today who plays tennis or table tennis or anything like that, or individual sports or swims. You find that you talk to yourself a lot, and that works because, like you said, if I make a mistake, I do the laughing thing. Sometimes I smile. I say, Kamasha, are you serious about that? Okay, next one. And it helps me to be like, as I say, you probably think that I'm just being crazy or something, but I say, okay, it's done. It's done. And I say it's done. So I start fresh. So it's a new point. So I say, okay, that's done, new point. And you have a chance to start over. And that's how I have to look at it. And that's how I deal with it. I have to forget it. If I dwell on that, then I'm going to be dwelling on it and I'm going to miss the opportunity, because I said it goes quickly. And I can tell you that I've used that to my advantage. The other day, I play in the league here as well. And I played the first division for the women's. And I can tell you, I was one of those people trailing behind. I kid you not, I probably was when we stopped at 11, I was like probably on 4 or something with one of those matches. And that girl was leading me. And I made her she made one bad mistake. And because of my attitude, and I was like, yeah, come on. And I saw that she was dwelling on it. I came up and I passed her and I beat her because you can see when a person is weak. You can see and you can feed off of that. You can dive in. And I use that and I just kept going hard. And that's the thing you have to use. You have to use your brain too. You have to play the mental game. And she just kept getting weaker and weaker because she got scared because she saw me just coming at her. You have to use a lot of strategy in these kind of sports. And because I told myself, okay, she made a mistake, she's scared now, and she sees me coming hard, and she was done. Mentally, she was done. She just kept doing it, and I just kept going, boom, 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 boom. And as I told myself, this is where I have to get the gas and go. And that's how we play the game. Yeah, anything can happen. So you don't give up too. I have had many matches where I'm down, and I'm surprised by how much I can come up and win a match. And it can happen to you too if you don't mentally stay in the game and push yourself.
Wow. Well, Doc, let's show the other video, and then when we finish, we'll try and get a lot of the participants to ask some questions. You can show the other video, please.
Awesome. All right, let's do it.
You guys get your questions ready. Huh? Get your questions ready. We don't have this opportunity every day.
Some people say you have to be broken to be fixed again. My name is Asha Phillip, and I run. Athletics for me was just a bit of fun. It was something different and it was something new. Trampolining was my main sport and I loved it. And then I fell into double mini trampolining, and then I became a world junior champion that year. I was at the World Championships in Quebec. I bounced up, but when I came down, I didn't land right. I could just hear the crunch. I could just see my leg pointing in a different direction. And I just remember grabbing my leg and then just screaming and screaming. There was nothing holding my legs together. In a heartbeat, everything was just gone. Everything I worked hard for had vanished. Everyone told me I was a write-off. So how does a child of age of 17 get back up? It felt like I'd lost something. I lost a part of me. I wanted to give up. And when you're at that point of just giving up, that's when you're meant to really turn your life around and change. It was my mum who believed in me. And for that, I believed in her. I really do question how I made it out. It was little by little, coming in to do the rehab. Step by step, you started to see improvement. The crutches went away, then I could walk. I was able to jog and then run. But then I had loads of injuries along the way. The only thing standing between success and failure is mental toughness. It's about being resilient. Being an athlete isn't like a normal job. The gym, strengthening, the mind work, the fitness for one shot for 11 seconds. There are a lot of knockbacks, a lot. It's how you handle it. But it's also the most amazing release. I let out all my stresses, all my bad energy. Every time I show up to train, I have the opportunity to learn more about myself and how to run correctly. Some people train brilliantly, but in a race, they don't win. You need focus. You're in an arena of thousands of people, then you're on the start line with 7 other women, then you have a man holding a gun, and you have to learn to channel all this, not panic. But there's so much going on with your family in the crowd, everyone's screaming, wanting you to do well, and obviously they're screaming for the girls alongside you. How do you put that all aside and say, okay, I have to focus on myself, focus on my lane, focus on me. There are sacrifices. There are lots of ways to have fun. Go after your goals and balance it out the right way. In the end, it's about knowing what's important to you and what makes you thrive. That's not just athletics, that's life.
I think that's so powerful. So
I'm lost for words. If I'm lost for words, that's a lot. I could talk a lot, but I'm lost for words.
That's amazing. I think she left one sport and went to another. Let me tell you, that's not easy to do. And it's just the injury that she got. I was talking about that just now. You're tainted by that as an athlete when you hear yourself, you hear that injury and you remember that. and you're scared and terrified by it to even move on. I've never had that bad. Thank God I've had a career where I've not had those bad injuries, but I know people who have, and it's not pretty. And yeah, and that's what we were talking about, being resilient and working hard. It takes a lot of hard work. Don't get it twisted when I say being resilient is just because somebody has a strong mind, but it takes a lot of work. And especially if you have, I want to add to this that having a very good support team is also very crucial as well. Don't underestimate support of a good team. And when I say that, we're talking about your good team of your coaches, your rehab people, your strength and conditioning coach, and also your family and friends. These people are critical towards your development, towards your mending. It's very important that these people play a part to your success as well. Just as much as they can crush you, they can also help build you back up. So
this is powerful, very powerful. Can we get some people in the on the chat? Please ask some questions, please. Can you just on mic or just use the raise hand option, so we don't all go at once? But I'd love you guys to interact with Dr. Kamasha.
someone I see asked a question about they were a FIFA assistant referee.
Yeah, so so sorry, Lydia, Coach Lydia, please unmute and ask, please.
Hi, good afternoon. It's Linda Bramble.
Hi, Linda.
Linda, sorry. It's Linda with a Y. Hi, Kamasha. It's really nice to see you again. You probably don't remember me, but you did a session for us already with the referees.
I used to do the referees. Yes, some years ago. Yes.
At that time, I was an instructor and an assessor. I was off the FIFA panel at that time. But in hearing you talking, I can see some of the things that I probably had to go through as an athlete and as a FIFA assistant referee. I want to ask the question, can you tell us one of the most challenging situations that you have been in as an athlete participating, and how did you rise to the occasion and overcome that challenge, if there were any?
That's a good question. I think I've had so many on court that I can't remember. On court, I would say I remember having to do playoffs to make a national team, and they made us do like 8 matches in a day, and that was extremely tiring to the point where we couldn't even walk afterwards. And I remember fighting for my life, basically. I mean, it's not the best way to do it, and as I say, highly critical of the board for how they did it. It's a whole other story. But it was really, really difficult physically on me and mentally on me. Just having to play that much and knowing that you're fighting for a position on a team. But I have to say, one of the hardest things for me that I faced was not on the court actually, but as an athlete. I had a situation with the organization once where this is very weird, but they didn't want me to continue. I'm also like you. I'm also an international umpire for badminton, and I'm also a player. And at some point, for some reason, because of some people who were a bit envious of the fact that I would travel for both and do both, they felt like I didn't deserve that, which I worked hard for both. So they wanted to stop me from doing both. And so they tried to kick me off of the team illegally, but it was very difficult for me to fight. So they tried to find ways of getting me off. One time, I'll use an example. I was always present for national training, and then they actually, I had to go on tour for a week to umpire, which is part of my national duty. So when I came back, they said, hey, and we were preparing for like going to a tournament abroad. So I came back to national training and they said, oh, well, you can no longer be on the team. I said, why can't I? And there were people who were missing training, mind you. I was always consistent. They said, because they were just waiting for that opportunity. You were not there. I said, but I literally went to serve my country, to represent, to umpire, and I'm here now. I missed a week because I had to. And I had to fight all of these things that they were trying to do just to find ways to fight me. And they wouldn't allow me to enter tournaments, even though that's not allowed. And just a lot of different technical things that I had no voice for. And because I'm the kind of person, if you know me, I'm not really a fighter. I could have fought, but I've seen other people, but I didn't want to really fight. I'm not like a person. I don't like confrontation. I always tell people. But when I look back on it, sometimes it angers me because they took opportunities away from me. And it was very rough for me. I'll tell you, I cried a lot because I felt like I had nobody fighting in my corner. My club tried and they couldn't get through to them. And it was very unlawful and unfair because there was no justification for it and there was nothing I could do. So you come across things like that with the associations and things like that that they do that are quite unfair to you. And that was one of the toughest fights that I had. And they made me miss out on a couple tournaments that I was supposed to be on a team and everybody was upset, but there was nothing that I could do about it. So those things mentally, it put me through a lot. And I'm here where I am today. So I always say, people say, remember when they did that to you? Everybody comes to me and say, you see, look at where you are now. And I say, well, yeah, but it's not a nice feeling when for no reason. I grew up in the sport and everybody knows me and my personality and my character. Why would you try to do that? You know, so yeah, sometimes you have to fight things. And it made me tougher though, in a way. It made me tougher in the sense that I had to, whenever I would step on the court, I got a lot tougher on the court, I have to say, because I had to show them that, hey, I deserve my spot and there's no reason to kick me off. So yeah, sometimes it's weird like that.
And that was leading to another thing that I wanted to ask you concerning being a woman in sport, and you know that sport is male dominated. Was it that fight you had males that you had to deal with, predominantly males that you have to deal with that fight?
Actually, yeah, now that you mention it, was all that on the, actually it was. I'm not usually one of those people like, yeah, women part, like it doesn't really matter to me. You know, I'm just a person about fairness. I'm very fair. Like I believe in whatever is fair, you know, but as you say, it was that, yeah, it did. And I didn't have anybody. It was primarily, I think there was like one woman at the time, but I think she was influenced by everything that was going on. So I really had no voice for anything, and that's why it was hard for me. But it's true, it's hard when you don't have a voice, and that's why I always say if I'm on a selection committee, I will always want to be fair for things. That's why I fight so hard for that. I've had coaches that in my small fraternity in badminton, I will tell you, it is very difficult. You'll have coaches that just not select you because they don't want you from that club. I've had to leave clubs. They just don't want to, and I want us to get over that. Just and not based on performance, just because they don't want you and they want somebody else from their club, and you're like, but you know clearly that this person is better than that person and whatever. But so trust me, in our sport, in a small fraternity, not like football is quite big, but I have been through so many things to fight for my position. Again, one time they did that to me and they were quite shocked when they said they put me in playoffs. They know that, as I say, singles is not my specialty. I am better and stronger in doubles and mixed. So they put me to playoff. And funny enough, in that playoff, I beat two of the people that normally they thought would have beaten me. And I said, look at God. I ended up beating them to get my place on the team. And that's where the fight. And I think mentally, I was like, I have to do this. And I think it's unfair, but I had to. And again, I won my place on the team fairly in that sense. So it's been a lot that I have to go through just to prove things that I shouldn't have to prove, but that's just the way it goes when it's a small fraternity. It's sad, but it's true.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank
you for your questions.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yannick Lewis, can you unmute and ask your question, please, Yannick?
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Yannick.
Good evening.
The question is, how do you train your mind to always be mentally tough?
Well, excellent question. So I will tell you that it's probably not always going to be that way. That's the reality of life. But you can definitely train it to most likely be that way when you need it to be. And that's why I mentioned earlier on that it takes work. It takes work. You have to start somewhere. And one of the ways that we can start is a list of things that you can do. And we can start by talking about goal setting. That is one. And I don't think we have time to go in. That would probably be a whole other session, because when I go to goal setting, I want to talk about there's a particular way that people get confused when we say goal setting. It's not about just saying, yeah, I'm going to do this and that's goal setting. Goal setting has to be broken down Specifically, I'm talking about by numbers and percentages and things. And if, by the way, you don't accomplish something during the week, you have to always adjust and reset your goals based on the activities that you are doing or not able to do. So that's one way. And resetting your goals is actually one of the ways I was going to say that to help build your mental toughness and to help cope is used as one of your coping mechanisms. Something happened and it didn't go your way. Cool. All right. I'm going to reset my goals. I have to reset my goals based on the challenges that I face and how I want to move on. So that's one way. And also, like I mentioned earlier, cognitive reframing, meaning that you're going to take the negatives that have happened and find a way to flip them into a positive situation. Look at them and reframe your thoughts to think about this negative thing into a positive way. Another way is that to get yourself mentally tough, I would say we could go into things like building your concentration, building and enhancing deep breathing. I'm a big believer in practicing deep breathing techniques, which we will practice one of them. And so deep breathing helps you in a physical way, your body physically helping with your oxygen, your blood circulation, your mind, your body. It really does help with those things. But these things, Yannick, to just answer you, to cut it a little bit, to summarize, is that you have to do a bit of it daily. You have to make it part of your routine. That as an athlete, you have to have a routine for things and you have to incorporate it into your routine daily. And as you do so, and you build up, just like I said, just as you have your training routine and your school routine for your work to study, to get your mind right, to be able to do your exams, you have to do the same for your mental work. And trust me, it will come. And as experiences go by in your sport, you will realize that, hey, I didn't even realize that this doesn't even bother me anymore. In the last video that I just showed, you notice that the woman talked about all these things that you have to deal with around you. You have to deal with somebody shooting a gun, doing this and that, and all these things we talk about as athletes. We have to learn how to block them out, or if we want to use them to our advantage, and we have to learn how to deal with them so that we can become a better athlete and that it can strengthen us. So those are some of the ways. Did that help you, Yannick?
Yes, thank you.
I'm happy then.
So Marie, can you go ahead and ask me, Marie, please?
Yes, a very blessed afternoon to everyone.
Good afternoon.
And let me personally commend the doctor for all her personal achievements. And I could really also empathize with a few of the challenges that you had experienced over your period of competition, being, as Linda said, a former FIFA match official and instructor, to the challenges that we continue to encounter. Having said that, the scientific approach that we are now looking at the sporting world with and through and for the athletes, the policymakers and the sports administrators, even at this point in time, don't seem to recognize the potency and the relevance and the magnitude and the depth of the contribution that can be furnished and provided to the athletes re sports psychology. My question is, why do you think reaching 2021, that is still the thinking of many sports administrators?
That's an excellent question, and we would have to pull aside and have that dialogue for a while. I will start off by saying this, that when I finished my master's and I went back to Trinidad with my degree in sport and exercise psychology. I tried to get jobs, and few interviews that I have, people would ask me, what is sport and exercise psychology? I literally had to explain to them what it was. I was unable to get a job for about 2 years after. The struggle, I have a lot of struggle. I was trying to tell Mr. Lafuka this, that there's so many things that I could go into about the struggles that I had. And so for me to be here today, like I had to start just doing a lot of just stuff on my own and just like for free and just pro bono and just trying to get my name out there. And I just wanted experience. And people didn't understand. And bottom line is, when I finally got into sports company, we and me and a few other sports psychologists or psychology consultants that there were, we had to do a lot of educating. So it has a lot to do because people don't know, and we still have a lot of the athletes. When I started working with them, with the first things they would tell us is, "Miss, we not crazy, you know. We don't need a psychologist." The thought, the coaches, there were coaches that didn't even want us to work with them. Now there are some coaches that were understanding, and there are coaches that didn't want us to. And that was shocking to me, because when you go to other countries and parts of the world where you have people being sports psychologists working with some of the top NBA players and this and that and yet and baseball players and this, it's like, to me, like these coaches didn't want to make time for us to be in sessions, you know, and it would be a blessing to us when we got a coach that actually asked us and begged us to come to work with their athletes and would make time out of their sessions for us to work with them. But the point is, and if I have to summarize, is that education. People don't know, people don't understand, and that's why I asked for the breakdown in terms of the percentages of what people think being a, they don't understand who a sports psychologist is and what's the purpose of it and the importance of what it does for one's well-being as an athlete. And we still sometimes, and I think it's also the culture of us as a people in Trinidad, I have to say, and in the Caribbean, the wider Caribbean. Because the rest of us, actually in the Caribbean, we have a group of us, we're not very many, and we've met before, and we were trying to even think of a name to call ourselves, because the idea and the word psychologist and psychology, it sort of, it's kind of like fearful to people, because they think, again, oh, psychology, and they're embarrassed to say that they work with a psychologist or whatever, because the connotation, it's kind of a negative connotation that goes with it. It's changing a bit now, it is. But again, as I say, we as sports psychologists, we're used to working in the background. You know how many athletes sometimes I see they're out there and they're getting results, and it's like everybody else gets the praise and and that's fine, the coaches and whatever. And sometimes we work and you don't know we're working, because we deal strictly with confidentiality, and it's up to the athlete if they want to mention that they even work with us, or if they want to mention our name, that's up to them. But we're usually the ones in the background that do the work, and nobody knows even that they're working with a sports psychologist. And so I think it's because, as I said, it's the lack of education of what the role is and how important it is to an athlete, and not just athletes, just as I say, the fact that my role is with exercise too. I can work with ordinary citizens and people. I can go to the doctor's office and people who have problems who need to do exercise and physical activity, but they have issues with that, with people in the army, police, all sorts of people. So that's a very good question. So it's about getting that education out there, and people really understanding the nature of the work and what it is.
Yes. Thank you so kindly.
Thank you so much for everything.
Thanks, Dion.
You're most welcome, Maureen. Most welcome. Great question. And we have Andre Fortune from North Carolina. Andre, welcome, and glad that you could join us.
North Carolina.
Mute here. Thank you, Dion. Again, another interesting conversation seminar. Lots to learn. Dr. Kamasha. For the past 30 years, the idea of a fake smile has had a negative connotation until today. First time I'm hearing that it could be used in a positive way, and that is great. It's all about learning. Very early in your conversation, you mentioned that it was difficult for some people to understand why you would go to Cuba and study sport. I don't know if you can remember that. And I would assume that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that group of people probably could have been half a dozen people in your community around your family, maybe a dozen. Today, with the invention of social media, a young person involved in sport or making a decision such as that, or just playing in sport, they're now open to a lot more people, thoughts, criticism, ideas, and sometimes these comments are not coming from an informed source. They see a performance, they see somebody make a decision, and they decide to comment. How would you advise a young athlete or young athletes to deal with that type of, I guess, negative pressure, if you want to call it that, or negative environment that they can find themselves exposed to?
Do you mean like associated with studying sport?
Well,
that type
not
of thing, right?
studying
Or like,
sports, but just dealing with the fact that you might have heard from about half a dozen people about your decision to go to Cuba, whenever that was. Now they can hear from hundreds of people about a performance, about a decision, about, right, because of social media. And we have become snackers of information, I like to say. So we just look at the headline and we say, okay, this is what I'm going to say about it. How do they cope with that?
Yeah, this is a really difficult one because social media is, as you say, it engulfs us. And this I would have to say for a person, if I would to treat someone or deal with someone like that, this would deal with self-control. It would be up to them. I would tell them they would have to know how to be disciplined enough to remove themselves from the social media. That could be one way. And also two, this is where the mental toughness comes in. That you have to be able to understand, like you said, that everybody's going to have an opinion. It's up to you to understand what to extract from that. And if you're willing to read it and you're strong enough, this is why you have to build up the mental toughness to understand that everyone's going to have an opinion. But you have to know what you know and what you're doing is right or wrong, and be prepared to deal with the backlash as an athlete in the public eye. Because you can't control people. Just like it's like when I talk to cricketers and they say, yeah, well, the pitch was bad today and the referee and the umpire, he make a bad call. I said, but can you control that? What are you going to do then? How are you going to move forward with that? How are we going to deal? I like to call them the uncontrollables. Are you going to let that riddle your performance? Yeah, but no, well, the pitch, we can't control that. So that's an uncontrollable thing. But what you need to do is work on concentrating on what you need to get better, to get better as an athlete, to improve your game, to improve your focus when you're in your training environment. And that's another thing. We need to separate. I always say focus is different from concentration. That's another thing. Again, we probably have to talk about that in a whole other session of why it's important to understand what focus is and what concentration is and how we need to deal with that. So yeah, as you say, it is a struggle that athletes are facing today. We have a perfect example with the Euros the other day in England and the last 3 penalties for England and what the racism and the attacks and that kind of thing. What are you going to do? You have to toughen up. Sadly, so it sounds a bit harsh, but you have to be mentally prepared to deal with it because that's what you signed up for as a professional athlete. Playing for your country. And that's why it's important to build and work with someone who can help you to build on that and know that your character is strong enough to be resilient enough to deal with the backlash. And that's the only way. Every individual is different. They have to build on that personally. I hope that is helpful to understand that.
No, that's good. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And Ikenna, you had a question? Coach Ikenna?
Yes, good afternoon, Dr. Kamasha and everyone on the panel again. So at least at the center of everything that we've been doing, and especially in this conversation. And I have 2 questions, basically. So what advice would you give to an athlete who is prohibited from pursuing their sport, coming to exam times, or let's say they go on to advanced level because for some strange reason, their parents think they can't do both. And the second part of the question is that, and how would you advise that they deal with negative comments that may come from the parent as well? So in terms of the parent saying, well, you shouldn't be playing it because you're really not that good at it. How does one deal with those things?
So the first one if they have an order from their parent to discontinue play, that's a difficult one because there's an order. I'm not going to advise any child to disobey their parent. This is where I'm going to say that perhaps a coach can come into play and they can educate. I have to use that word again. Educate them by showing them facts, showing them positive examples of where the balance comes in, the science behind it. Because we have a way in Trinidad, we just like to talk, but and I say this again probably because I'm a scientist and I come from a scientific background. Now, trust me, everything in my life is not based on that, because I also believe in a lot of other things. But sometimes here's where science and facts has to come into play. If the coach really believes that that child has a lot of potential and that they see, and that's where the coach has to talk to the child too. He has to strike his end of the bargain and show that he can balance and put in the discipline to study, and he can help him and say, listen, we have to develop a plan. Just like the coach develops his macro cycle, help the child develop a strategy and a discipline agenda where study time, training time, this is how we're going to present this to your parents. Have a strategy in place. Don't just walk there. Show them these figures of why the body needs to have exercise, how it's going to help with motivation, how it's going to help with building character, how these things help in the future. As I said, all these things helped me, and I was just that kind of person. Like I say, when I had to get up to get to national training for 5 o'clock in the morning and all those things, these things helped me, and it developed character in me. And to just, when I had to go catch flights and travel abroad and play, it was a lot that it helped me just developing that. So I would say to work together with them, and they say, mom, dad, just give me a chance to have you talk to my coach, but have a plan ready. Have a plan ready where you can show them that you can balance it. Don't just go there. And because that is possible to develop a proper plan. The negative talk, I'll give you a joke. Now, I don't want my family to come off as evil and whatever, but from my siblings, I used to get all the time that, oh, badminton is a sissy sport and badminton and not this or that. And I had a reputation, people probably too young to know here, Merlin Otti. My father in particular and my brothers used to trouble me and say that I was the Merlin Otti of badminton, because most of my singles medals used to be bronze. I have a ton of medals and most of the time was bronze, and all you could get is bronze. And whenever I would get the silver or the gold in doubles, it's because you have somebody to help you. That's the only reason why you get a medal. You get a first place. Let me tell you, I went through it. I used to get it, and I still to this day, now they kind of settled down on me because they realize, as I say, badminton, I never would have thought took me from here today. I'm here today, specialized. I got to do what I love. I got to literally research badminton from my doctorate and sport, like for a living. I was living a life like I never thought I would be able to do that. Like, I enjoy totally what I do, and everybody stopped laughing at me, but I got it. I went through the ringer each time, no matter what. I would bring home medals, and I remember distinctly showing my father sometimes. I love my father, but he would be like, oh, bronze again, or not first, or yeah, you know what I mean? And they didn't understand the hard work. I come home dripping wet, hard work on the court, putting my everything out there, and they didn't understand that, and that hurt me a lot. I wouldn't get my family, really. The only person who used to come, God rest his soul, I mentioned my brother was like my best friend who passed away, and he was the only one who would come and support me, and that meant the world to me, because nobody else had the time or to bother to come watch me play, because to them badminton was boring. They didn't understand. And so to that, I will say is that all you could do again is educate. Let them come and see, invite them and say, Mom, you don't understand what it is. Let me show you what I do. Because I can tell you a lot of people who didn't understand until people see us play badminton. People would be like, oh, badminton is that sport you play in the backyard? Until they come see us play, they understand, oh, this is how you guys play. Like, we'd be in the airport, I tell you, many times we were the team traveling in the airport and people in Trinidad would be like, we have a national badminton team. And like, until we had footballers come and they would be like, let's try to play it. And they tried to hit, they couldn't even hit the shuttle. They tried to run around the court and they're like, we play football, but we're so tired, because they don't understand the science again of the sport. They look at the court and they think, because they don't understand the rhythm of the sport and how difficult. So again, educate. Say, Mom, this is what I do. Take a video. Nowadays, technology, I didn't really have that back then. Take a videotape of what you do, show it to them and explain to them, this is what I do. This is how difficult the sport is. This is what so educate them, because sometimes they really just don't know, and invite them. And then, as I say, let the coach sit with them and say, this person, your son or your daughter has this potential, and you should really support them, because look, they can take you. I got 2 scholarships. As I say, I went from a national sports scholarship to a Commonwealth scholarship to study. I would never in my life have thought that I would be a 2-time scholar, all because of sports. I'm not saying because I wasn't brilliant enough to put in the work, but that's it too. I had to put in the work. And that's what people don't understand, that you still have to put in the work always. And I might add again that I did a master's and I still played for my university when I was in Wales. playing badminton, and I still came up with my master's, still went in the league and was traveling around England and playing. And that is actually what kept me going, because I said, as I mentioned earlier, when I was doing that, my mother was suffering from cancer all the way in Trinidad. And that was one of the things that kept me sane, let me tell you, until I had to jump on a plane to meet my mother in her final days back in Trinidad and come back and finish my master's. And I will tell you, my professor looked at me and said, we can just give you a diploma and you won't get your master's because we understand. And I said, are you crazy? I said, you want my mother to get up from her grave? I am finishing this. And that's how I finished my master's. That's how I finished. They couldn't believe that I wanted to finish. I flew back and I said, no, I'm finishing. I could never give up that opportunity and not finish. So I have a lot of stories, as I said, but I hope that answers and that helps clarify something for you that you can try. All about educating, and that's all we can do in these days, this day and age. We can just educate them.
It has, and thank you very much for that, because as Coach Dion would know, I am an assistant coach with a female team. And what we have seen is that not many parents come out and support these girls. And sometimes what will happen is that from the slightest bit of trouble, the first thing they want to do is ban them from the game. So we now have this constant battle of the parents versus, and worse yet, if it's like the grandmothers and the grandfathers, of course they're from the old school, so they're not seeing what the sport is and that kind of thing, and what the sport can give the athlete. So it's very, very useful information. And it's a pity though that many more parents and young athletes were not on this call this afternoon, because this is vital information towards their development. Very, very, very.
First of all, let me say I'm shocked you even have girls, because the last I checked right now, girls don't even want to do sports anymore. The last I checked, a lot. So I applaud you for the fact that you even have girls out there doing that, because it's different when I was growing up. As I tell you, I mean, I know, as I say, I was a tomboy because of how I grew up in the environment, but it's so hard to get girls, I realize, who want to get dirty and sweaty and do sports. So I applaud you for that. So whatever you could do for real to keep them in. And that's why I say we live in a technological age. Get together as a group, put on a display for them, a PowerPoint, put together a movie or some sort, and let the girls come together. It's a project where they put together a movie showing them and acting, and say, hey, parents, a movie night, this is what we do. This is why sports is important to us. This is what sports can do for us physically, mentally, educationally. There are scholarships, there are jobs, there's a whole list of careers in sports nowadays. I'd say do a project like that of some sort. Like, that's say the technology can go so far nowadays, and just get together, and it would be fun for them. It would be a team building effort project as well for them. So yeah, try different creative ways to get them to understand. And as I say, the girls too have to play their part. This is why you have to tell them, hey, you have to play your part too. You can't slack off. You have to do your part, because we're working too hard to build something, and you have to show that you can play your part and build it, and so we can keep a good thing going. So I applaud you for that. That's great. That's great work.
Thank you very much for that suggestion. I took a note of it, and I think it's something that we should really do at the club in order to, to get the parents more involved and the guardians more involved.
Yeah, but social evening, we call it social evening, and do a whole show and let them do. It's a good way for the girls to do research and come together, give them assignments of who's doing research and what, so that they put together a whole evening of information for them, and have a little social evening with it. And it's a way that you can address the situation for them, keep them in it.
That is excellent. Thank you so much, and
You're
very
welcome.
good presentation today.
I hope it works out for you. I'll be checking on it with Mr.
I'm pretty sure we will. I'm sure technical director.
We do follow-ups around here.
I will. Thank you so much. Alrighty.
Okay.
Dr. Kamasha, this is so fantastic. I was just sitting in my mind, I'm good. I don't know. I'll do whatever I have to do to get this video out, because there's so many. You gave us so many gold nuggets, because somebody here, Dr. Kamasha, she's just lucky. No, look at the kind of effort that you are actually living what parents talk about. When a parent tells a child you can become anything you want to become, you're actually, in my opinion, a perfect example of such. And you went through so many different trials, and to have that smile as you talk about This is fascinating. What I'd like to do is if you can just wrap up and just give some final words to the audience, please.
Oh yeah, final words. There's so much still that I wanted to do with you guys. I had a little exercise, but what can I say for final words?
Actually, sorry, let me ask the guys in the audience. Can we ask Kamasha to stay on for 10 more minutes so she can do the activity? That's what I want to learn myself.
No, I don't want to. They're probably tired, but
let me ask you guys. You guys put in the chat. Can we beg her for 10 more minutes? But I need you guys to work with me on this one. 10 more minutes of her time. Come on. Are you guys up for it?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so so please, I would love you to do the activity with us, please.
I'm happy to hear that. Okay, so it's a simple activity everyone can join in on, actually. So what I'm going to do, the activity is, I like to do this for, it's to help build and enhance concentration. And it also helps to helping to switch concentration, because in a lot of sports, we actually need to concentrate, as I said. Now, I was talking about, I mentioned earlier, focus and concentration. So I'll mention quickly. When a coach sometimes, and this is why I want to say this, because sometimes you'll be on court performing and a coach will say, yell at you, focus. And that's not what you need to do. Because focusing is, I'll give an example. Focusing is when I'm already in the court and I'm in the gym or whatever, and I'm warming up and I'm getting ready to perform. I know that that's my focus. I'm aware that I'm in the gym or the court or on the field getting ready. That's my focus. I know I'm focused because I'm aware of my surroundings. I'm aware of my duty, of my actions, of where I need to be and what's happening. So that's focus in a nutshell. Concentration, however, is when you pay attention to a particular task. So what your coach really needs to yell at you if you're doing a 3-point or you're doing a kick is to concentrate, because on that particular task that you're doing, you need to concentrate on that. And that takes work. Concentration is very important to us, because if you will realize, and I can tell you again from a badminton player's perspective, the more tired we get, the more we lose concentration, and then that leads to errors. We start making, in what we call in badminton, unforced errors. We start hitting into the net because we're tired. We start hitting shots outside because we're tired. You lose concentration because your brain gets tired. You lack oxygen. So one of the things that I like to do and encourage is a practice called deep breathing. Now, there are many other things we can do, progressive muscle relaxation, whatever. We don't have time, but there's something that I like to practice, and it's an exercise. It's so simple. There's so many things. You can just stare at an object. I can make you do that. You can do that for a minute a day and think about a word in your mind and you'll see how hard that is. Just think about a particular word and try not to think about anything else and to avoid that. And you'll see how difficult that is, and you'll see how bad your concentration actually is. But the exercise we're going to do today is called the yellow blue. And this has been shown to improve concentration by about 60% if you practice it throughout the week. So what we're going to do, I want everybody to just sit back wherever you are. If you're lying down, even all the better. And I'm going to give you an instruction for a few times. So when I tell you, I'm going to count to 3, and you're going to close your eyes, and I'm going to ask you, and this is very important, when you're deep breathing, you need to concentrate on filling your lungs with air deeply and letting that diaphragm, you have to fill your lungs with air. So you're going to close your eyes, breathe in, you're going to hold your breath for a bit, and then exhale through your mouth. Make sure you let it come through your mouth. That's important. And you're going to do that for a while. Whenever you breathe in, when I say breathe in, I want you to think of the color yellow. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to think about. I just need you to think of the color yellow. And whenever you breathe out, and I say breathe out, I need you to think of the color blue. Does everyone understand that? And then I'm going to ask you some questions after, and we're going to see what I'm talking about, okay? So we're going to do, because we're running short of time. So I'm going to ask you now, after the count of 3, to close your eyes. So get ready. 1, 2, 3. Your eyes are closed and you're relaxed. And so take a deep breath in, hold, and breathe out. Let it come through your mouth. Let that air escape. Deep breath in again. Fill those lungs really rich and deep, proper deep breathing. Hold and breathe out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. And the last one, deep breath in, hold, and out through the mouth. And at the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. 1, 2, 3, eyes open. So we just kind of rushed through that because obviously if we're doing a session of, there's so much imagery and different things that we can do. We can do scripted imagery and all that. So now I'm going to ask, I want some people to answer. Who was able, when I said breathe in, who was able to see yellow? Was everybody able to see yellow? Was there anybody that couldn't see yellow? Somebody has a hand up. Yannick,
Yannick.
Does
Yannick,
that
you can unmute and answer.
yeah,
Yannick,
just unmute and answer since we. Could you see yellow?
Yes.
You could see the yellow. Now the next question is, what did you see that was yellow? I see somebody said they couldn't see it, so I'm interested. I'll get to Yannick. What did you see that was yellow? Did you just see yellow, or did you see an object?
Just yellow, kind of like a blank wall,
Was it a strong yellow? Was it vibrant, or was it faint?
Probably in the middle.
In the middle. Then could you have switched to the blue? Could you see blue?
Yeah.
What did you see for blue?
The same thing as yellow, which was like the blank wall filled with blue.
Okay. And the person who said, somebody said they couldn't see it. Is it Ikena? That's how you pronounce it? Ikena, he said he couldn't see. Could you talk to me and explain to me, please?
I'm not too sure if I did it right, so probably that's what happened. I mean, maybe I was focusing on the breathing aspect of it rather than, but my eyes are closed, so.
But then that's the thing. As we just said, you were concentrating on breathing, and then that means that you have difficulty then in concentrating on the task of seeing the yellow or something yellow, and you're unable to switch tasks and concentrate on 2 things at the same time. So you see how something so simple, but you couldn't see anything yellow. Were you able to see something blue? No.
Yeah.
It didn't progress at all. You had it 3 times, and each of the times you were unable to see anything.
Correct.
And that shows then that you see that you have difficulty then probably in concentrating. And this is why maybe perhaps if you practice gradually, you might see changes. And what this shows as well is that you might have difficulty switching concentration or attention to tasks. Right. So somebody I see here says they could only see yellow after the 3rd try. So that's very interesting. I like to see stuff like that. It took them a while before they could see the yellow. You want to talk about that quickly? And they said, and it was a top of my friend as a profile. See, and they saw something familiar. Right, Linda.
That's correct, because at the first try, I was just seeing yellow in my mind, but nothing yellow was coming. Then at the 3rd try, I remember a friend of mine who has as her profile picture a yellow top. Right. And that is when I was able to concentrate on the yellow. But the blue was easy because of the fact blue is one of my favorite colors. So I concentrated on one of my shirts that I have. That's why I was able to get to the blue.
So your memory, and you see, and that's what I talked of earlier with the amygdala, is also something where we do with memory, and it's associated with emotions and memory and different things. So your brain made that connection with your favorite color blue. So you grabbed something that was familiar to you, and the yellow as well with something that you remembered. So it is interesting to see. Let's see, one last person said they had to force themselves to see it, but the first time and the second and the third time didn't have to force themselves because it came a bit more naturally. So just to show you how simple, and this is why this exercise, and especially if you have like competitions coming up and stuff, I encourage people just by doing this, just spend, if this is something you could sit in your chair at work. This is something when before you go to bed at night, I just tell people, just spend a minute a day or so, start with a minute, and just start with things like this, and you build up. And especially if you have competition coming up, as you'll see it helps you to better concentrate. These are just some of the simple things, and there's so many other exercises that you can do to help you concentrate, switch concentration, because when you're playing, you have so many things. I could tell you for badminton, our shuttle comes back at us at how many milliseconds. We have to switch attention at different things, the opponent, whatever things are happening. In football, you have different athletes coming at you, so you have to be able to do that. And so it's important to build that concentration, and that shows us how difficult it is, but we take it for granted. So I just wanted to point that out, and why deep breathing is important. Again, as I said, remember I talked about earlier on real quick about how I used to shake, and also when I get tired. I have now developed a trademark. I'm the only person back at home who does this for several years, that I figured out a way, because in badminton, we're not allowed rests. So one of my trademarks before I serve is I stop and I realize I take a deep breath into the shuttle, and I always blow. And people always like, why does she blow into the shuttle? But that's my trademark, because that's the way I found to cheat the system, that I take a deep breath, and it allowed me to calm myself and to also get my body calm, and I stop shaking, and then I would serve. And that's what I do, and that's just my trademark. So I blow into the shuttle before, and that's what I had to do to come up with a way to cope with my anxiety, and that's what I did. So I really hope that I've left you with things that you can chew on. So my final words is to don't underestimate the power of mental toughness, the mind, and working on things that can help you to cope, to be resilient. And there is hope. There is hope in everything, because I will tell you this real quick, emotions and emotional intelligence. We talk about this in sports psychology. Emotions are very short-lived. Scientifically, they're very short-lived. So don't, it might seem that they are, but that's why people tell you when you're angry or something, you don't go writing off an email. Wait for a while, because they're short-lived. So there is hope. You may go through something and you may think that it's never going to end, but no, with work and learning how to cope with it, and reframing things and working on yourself, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And trust me, I'm living proof of that. And as I said, I haven't even told my full story of how things happen and how the time frame to understand what I've been going through. But there is hope. Don't give up. Just keep working on yourself. Just keep adjusting things as life goes on, and you will find that you can succeed. And I wish you all the best in everything that you do. Please, I do. Trust me, it will work out.
Dr. Kamasha, on behalf of the Trinidad Tobago Football Association, on behalf of the Trinidad Tobago FIFA Normalization Committee, all I'm going to say is this is priceless, right? This is
really
literally priceless. You are a blessing to the world.
Oh, that's
and I
really...
mean that, and I mean that very, very sincerely, because I can tell you, I have so many kids out in the States also, and in the Caribbean that reach out to me for advice, and I'm going to direct them to this video, and of course direct them towards you and what you offer. Actually, James, definitely a compliment. James Fortune wants to chat with you a little bit. James Fortune wants to chat with you a little bit after we let everybody else out of the room. But want to thank you really and truly for the time that you've taken. You're how many hours ahead of us?
Yeah, it's minutes to 10 at night now.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock at night.
Fine.
But
Yeah.
Trust me, this information will not go to waste. I'm sure for everybody on the call. And also, if you guys want to put some comments quickly in the chat,
Thank
please
you all.
do.
I see that you're welcome. You're so welcome. And that's a grand compliment for real by Mr. Lafgaret. I'm humbled, and I'm just grateful, as I say, to give back to everyone in my country and everywhere. I really am happy to do this. It's not even a problem for me. Very, very happy. Thank you so much.
So this is so amazing. This is so amazing. This is fantastic. So what I will do is what we'll do is actually Dr. Kamasha, what we'll do is sign off, and then we would sign back on the same link. So you just yourself and
okay.
and Yale, and we will just sign off and then sign back on to Andrew wants to get a little bit more information from you. He's all the way in Carolina, and he's actually joined us on quite a few of our seminars. So we'll Andrew will join back on afterwards. So again, everybody, Thank you very, very much. And this is your blessing to the world, and I mean that very, very sincerely. So many gold nuggets, so many takeaways.
I appreciate that.
So many takeaways. What you could do, Doc, if you can you put your email address in the chat?
In the chat?
Anybody would like to contact you, they can contact
Yeah,
you through your email.
I'm
Can
doing
you
that
just put it?
now.
So you guys can take down Dr. Kamasha's email address in the chat.
Yeah, make
Screenshot
sure
it
I
or take a
spell that
photo of it.
right. Kamasha Robertson. Yeah, that's it right there. Simple, just my name. Yeah, and anybody can contact me. It's fine. Yeah, I hope I don't contact you at weird hours because I'm here in Belgium. As you say, so I'm like, I think I'm 6 hours ahead for now.
Yes.
So, and so, yeah, I might send something back to you real early in the morning or something. It's
Everybody, thank you very, very much. This is very, very informative, very inspiring. And we thank God for you. And we want to very sincerely wish you all the best in all your endeavors.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
We have so many good things coming from Trinidad and Tobago. And here's another example of people who have excelled in their different fields. And I wish you were around when I was going to school because I needed to hear some of these things.
Someone said that they haven't seen the email address. Oh, because it went to the technical TTFA. Sorry, I think I have to do it then to
do it to
everyone.
yeah.
I didn't realize that. Sorry. So let me do it. It went to your boy Yale.
Yeah, that's cool. Yale was like, I found gold.
Yale was secretly snubbing that email address then. Now I think, yeah, it's to everyone. All right. So it should be fine. So you want me to sign out and then
yeah, just give 2 minutes and then sign back in. Yeah, please.
Okay. That's no problem. Everyone, I wish you all a good evening and stay safe, take care of yourselves and your family, and keep working, keep exercising, finding a way. Don't give up. You know, there's alternatives to not being on court. You know, pick up that instrument, whatever you have. I do it. You know, find a wall, find something, do shadow. We call it shadow. I don't know what you'll call it. Practice. Just keep practicing. Watch YouTube videos. I do that, tell athletes that helps to inspire. That also helps to keep you sharp of techniques and people and athletes playing and matches. That's also a good technique to keep you sharp as well. So.
All right. Thanks again.
Okay, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm going to sign out now,
awesome.
okay?
Don't ever forget that you guys have greatness inside of you. Don't ever forget that. All right, don't ever forget that. So you're gonna give it 10-second countdown. So 10, 9, 8,
Bye.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, bye.